Hello.
Hey guys,
I think we're live.
I think so. Um, how's everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of Bio AI Dev Updates. I don't know if that's the official title that we're going with now, but I think we're excited to walk through many of the recent changes that you might find if you're a BIOS user. And for those who have not heard of BIOS before, I think we can do a very quick explanation of that. And I think Marco, Mihailo, you two will be the stars of the show today. I'll just kick things off and then we can walk through some of the features. But briefly, before we jump into that, for anyone that's not familiar with BIOS and BioProtocol, so BioProtocol is an organization that is aiming to accelerate scientific research, scientific breakthroughs, pretty much everything in that domain. And part of our aim in building that has been to enable, I guess you could say, the democratization of scientific ideation and the creation of ideas that are ready to be ramped up and amplified from a funding perspective. So BIOS is our AI scientist to help users with that. It's a very much a general purpose AI scientist that allows users to work on and refine different scientific ideas, get them research ready, if you will. And we think it's very powerful. Uh, Perhaps the most powerful AI scientist that is on the internet right now. If you notice, there's many different AI scientists coming out right now, and so each of them have, I would say, their own pros and cons. And Lucas, thanks for joining. We could probably speak to this a little bit. Lucas, why don't you actually maybe kick things off about how you view BIOS compared to some of the other great AI scientists, and then we can move on to specific features that and changes that we've built.
Oh yeah, I can do that. So hi all. I think one of the very good features that Bio has is like the autonomous mode. If you have tried some of the new ones, like for example Philo or Lightfold that just went live very recently, I think one of the key differentiator is that if you, for example, look at the two that I just named, they're highly specialized in workflows that are, for example, bioinformatics, or if you think about protein folding. These are, let's say, I would call them more specialized tools. Honestly, in my opinion, really focusing on researchers and potentially also research institution, much more of an of an approach of who should use that. So I could see a lot of like researchers from university actively use it, but kind of like let's say a highly specialized tool. I think for bias, and that's one of the beautiful things, it's actually more versatile. So you could use it as the others to to have very specialized, and as Akash mentioned, with the results showing that we are like can deliver state of the art, for example, data analysis and representation of this data. But I think it's still very usable for someone that wants to start with research, maybe even a patient, or someone who is, let's say, undergrad and it's just starting with a research career. This is very different, as BIOS, I think, guides you, I would say, better and is more intuitive while being definitely at the same level of strength in terms of what you can do with it. But I think these are some of the um, key differences that we also like focus on during the development.
Thank you. Thank you, Lucas, for that overview on how we sort of viewed the overall AI scientist landscape. Yeah, Marco, Mihailo, I want to hand it off to both of you, and actually maybe just one small note before that. So obviously in our previous live streams for BIOS, we've been showcasing the BIOS UI. We're very proud of the UI. We think that we think it offers quite a strong user experience for many reasons. For example, what Lucas mentioned about the different modes that you can run your research queries in, but also I think the title of this stream, or it's kind of alluding to the BIOS API as well, and so we're really excited about this because while we think that the UI is sort of one of the better use cases of how you can leverage this scientific intelligence, we're limited by our own creativity, and so we're very excited about API access. Okay, I'll hand it off to you guys, and if you want to share your screen, feel free.
Yeah, I can maybe share the screen, show some of the new features, and then Mihailo, you can speak later about the what's coming in the API as well, like how you see it it being useful. Let me just see how you share the screens. Share the screen here. I've never done it before. Okay. Oh, and by the way, actually, before that, I'm sharing the screen, and I see a question regarding like OpenClaw. So actually, I mean, this is not a part of the stream, but we've actually been developing something else related to OpenClaw. I guess it's worthwhile to touch on it now. So I mean, I actually just made this public before the stream, so you can technically check it out as well, even though I have no idea if it works. I committed like 30 minutes ago, but basically, and this is not the right link, but basically we are building something that's kind of so basically you will have a platform which you can register labs on, and agents can be registered to these labs, and these agents are actually OpenClaw instances, which they don't have to, but they can call BIOS, which is the main like product, right? So I mean, maybe another stream on that next week, but since you asked, why not answer?
I think it's good that you bring it up too, just because with the Claude Lab, it's a really, I think in many ways it's meant to showcase the how you can use BIOS API in real time in action, and the obvious explosion in enthusiasm for these Claude bots, OpenClaw instances just shows that inevitably we're moving towards this more autonomous future. So yeah, thanks for previewing Claude Lab.
Yeah. And I want to show the features, but actually I just remembered, because we didn't have the stream last week. I actually remember one thing that I wanted to show on that stream, which was, I mean, we've been diving into some very scientific stuff with BIOS, but I actually wanted to show one, live thing that happened to me. So I just remember oh yeah, I got my blood work like 2 weeks ago, and then I was like, okay, let me just test it with BIOS, and I have this thing where my bilirubin, whatever that is, it affects the liver, is very high since I was a kid. And I do a lot of sports, blah, blah, blah. So basically, I wanted to just ask about some supplements or even peptides I can explore. And I ran this, and I think it did free. So this was in smart mode, so it did 3 iterations, and it actually told me here. Let me just see where exactly. I think it's here, or maybe here. Oh yeah, so it told me here supplements to avoid, and it actually said this milk thistle, which I could find it, but I mean, you guys can also just trust me. But I swear that I asked Claude 2 or 3 months ago what supplement to use for my condition, and it said to use this, right? But I actually used BIOS, and it said to not use this, and it linked some clinical trials and stuff. I mean, this is one of them. But yeah, basically it linked me proof that this is actually bad for me, and it recommended what other supplements to actually use, which let me find where it is. So yeah, so this is what it suggested, And I mean, I cannot show you the supplement because I threw it in the trash. But this other one that is suggested, Apigenin, I actually have it here. So basically, I can make my screen bigger or zoom in, whatever. But basically, I literally changed my supplements because BIOS showed me proof that something I was doing is not good at all for my health, basically. And what should I do about the screen, by the way? Because I cannot zoom in physically. I think this is like too much.
I think we can see it. I personally can see it pretty well. Just one quick note on this user story, I would say. Obviously, BIOS is not like a replacement for a doctor, but I think this shows how powerful this tool is. And even Marco, for someone like you who's not, trained as a scientist necessarily, being able to derive value from it that the typical frontier models would not be able to provide. So we talk a lot about like the scientific research potential for BIOS, but I think as Lucas, you mentioned, comparing the landscape of AI scientists, truly the use cases for this are much broader than just professional scientists.
Yeah. And you can see here, actually, Claude literally told me to use this, which was wrong, basically. And yeah, some people may ask me, like, why didn't you ask a doctor? I don't really like them that much. I don't like going to the doctor, so that's why I was, trying to figure it out via the internet. Anyways, back to the features, which I wanted to show initially. So I think the main very, very nice thing that we added is the plan mode. So let's say I'm basically kind of rushing for no reason, and I will not write a question in a good way. I will just like ask something very broad. So I don't know, let's do some research on supplements for liver or something. Well, obviously this is quite a bad query, right? And before we would just let it go, and then the agents would do whatever. Like it would probably do something very, it wouldn't do what you want it to do because you didn't actually express yourself what you want to do. So we made this like big, I think it's a big like user experience improvement where, like BIOS will ask you questions basically. So I can say here Gilbert syndrome, which is what I have. Sure, let's do like vitamins, and I'll maybe zoom in a bit more. I don't know if you guys see. And yeah, what am I looking for? Well, yeah, give a lot of evidence, please, and a summary at the end. And now actually, the agent will actually understand what I want to do instead of guessing, right? So I think this is like a very, very nice feature for people who are, well, for me, especially because I'm lazy to actually write a good query. But, even if you write a great query, which is maybe long, like one or two like paragraphs, still, you might miss something, and then the agent might catch it, and and then it's recommending me like which tasks exactly to do, and I can even provide feedback here, and then it will generate them again. But yeah, let's say I'm happy and I can accept the plan, and then it will just work as before, kind of.
Marco, maybe can you maybe stop sharing and try to zoom in beforehand? I can see the screen pretty well, but I guess others are having trouble.
Yeah, again, I think my laptop screen is just small, to be honest. Like, it's not a big screen. like I can just zoom in, right? I can't do anything else. I can maybe full screen it, but how do you full screen? Oops, not this. Oh yeah, I'm not even sure how you full screen. Oh, like here, right? But then I can't change the tab. Okay, I'll full screen it when I have to, basically. Okay, I mean, sorry. I guess for the next stream, we'll have to like figure it out how to share the screen better. But another feature that we added basically is, let me just see some chat that I like. Oh yeah, sure. So here I uploaded some reports. I mean, this is like a small thing, but now the analysis agent can like much better read PDFs. But that we didn't even document that in the changes. But anyways, I uploaded like a paper here, which was like AI generated, and I wanted BIOS to check if it's like legit, basically. And another thing we have is like branching off, which, why is it not working right now? That's awkward because I can't demo it now. But yeah, basically you should be able to branch off of conversations. I'm not sure why it's not working now. Maybe something is wrong with my account. But basically, if you have like a conversation that you like, but you still want to keep it, basically, but you also want to copy it and then go into a different direction, you could use this feature and just like duplicate the conversation, basically. And in the second conversation, you can like change the objective and yeah, basically diverge your research in two different paths. And yeah, I think those are like the main features we added from the UI side. Additionally, like the paper generation feature is much improved. Like it shouldn't error as much as before. And yeah, I think that's it from my side.
Marco, maybe before we hand it off to Mihailo on the API side, can you actually just maybe quickly show one of the papers generated? I don't think this is something that we've shown on the live streams yet. Like
Yeah,
maybe for the milk thistle conversation.
Yeah, let me see if I have that one.
And I see, by the way, in the chat, people are still having some issues with visibility. We'll try our best to fix it, although unclear if we'll be able to.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, in Chrome, right? But here, there's no option to do it here, right? I don't think. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I'll show this paper and then we can answer some questions. But yeah, I think I generated this from that conversation before. And I mean, this specific conversation that I generated the paper from, like honestly, it's nothing special because it's just literature. But as you can see, there are like there are references here which you can go to, and yeah, like we cited like a what is this even? Is it like a paper or something else? Yeah, I think it's sort of an article. Yeah. And I think we also cited like clinical trials. I'll zoom in maybe. I think there's like also a clinical trial. Yeah, here. So this is some article regarding clinical trials in this about basically the condition that I have. And yeah, the papers are even more interesting when you actually run when you actually generate them from conversations that have actually analysis tasks. So if you analyze some data sets and stuff like that, which yeah also goes with the question that someone asked, I think, is BIOS primarily a retrieval and summarization layer, or does it perform structural evidence grading and methodological analysis? Well, I guess we're doing all of that, but we're also doing like data analysis stuff. So if you have data sets, even if you don't have data sets, you can just like link links and data sets online that you found, and yeah, like our sub agent will do data analysis for you and give you summaries, give you like the Python code that was executed, and even like the PNGs generated, the figures and stuff like that.
I think when I see that kind of question, typically most are essentially asking, is this like a basic RAG system? Definitely not. It's a lot more powerful than that. I think we can link the archive preprint that we published, which outlines the full architecture of the deep research functionality, which also goes into at some level of detail how these subagents work. So if anyone is interested in that from a technical architecture feasibility perspective, we'll get that link. Thank you, Nate, for that. Okay, Mihailo, do you wanna take the reins for the API? And also, if anything on the data analysis agent, feel free to speak to that too.
Okay, so regarding the API, it was a long-awaited feature. I would say. We got like many questions around it that we should probably expose this to the subagents and to all systems that would like to integrate BIOS. So we have enabled it. There is, I can share the screen to show a quick setup. Yeah, I hope it is visible. Okay, so basically when you navigate to the BIOS here, and when you actually want to create an API key, it is tied to your account. So you can click on your icon here. You go to the settings inside your account. You can see we have API keys. So once you create an API key through this, like testing or however you want to, this will be revoked. So however you actually do that, you just copy the key and then you can call our APIs. And there are currently 2 APIs that are probably worth looking into. And the one is start the deep research and get the conversation details. So start the deep research would actually just, well, run the deep research. We have some message, we have conversation ID if we want to continue our conversation, or the research mode. And the research mode could be semi-autonomous, which we are calling it smart on our UI, fully autonomous, which is, well, fully autonomous and steering. So these are 2 kinds, and these API calls are actually going to reduce your token counts similarly to how we are doing it on the UI. So if you run the steering mode, we will reduce it by 1 credit, smart up to 5 credits, and autonomous would basically reduce up to 20 credits. So that's how API works. And one more thing, because we are living in this era where MCPs are kind of popular. So if you want to basically include BIOS MCP, we have enabled that as well. So you can see we have exposed those APIs too. So list conversation, get conversation, and start deep research. And all of them have basically strong descriptions and explanations on when should we actually call this API. All these docs could be actually found on our ai.bio.xyz/docs. And when you scroll down, you can see this API access with overview, playground, MCP integration, and so on. So one thing that is probably coming up next is the sub-agent API. And basically, if you want to have full access to the sub-agents and not like the orchestrator level, and you want to run the literature only or the data analysis only, you could do it. This is still work in progress. We have not yet enabled this. So right now you can only run the deep research like you would do from the UI. So I'm dropping the docs in the chat as well. And I think that is it from the API perspective.
Thanks, Mihailo. Definitely good to call out that the exposing the subagents as their own endpoints and being able to query them is on the short-term roadmap. I think that one's very interesting because depending on how external users plan to ingest the API within their custom workflows, it could be much more targeted. Obviously, literature and data analysis are experts in their own domain, and then deep research is the way to sort of orchestrate all of that and synthesize everything into a shared persistent world state. But I do think that there will probably be a lot of people who just want the targeted, like data analysis, for example, responses or targeted literature responses. Maybe we can see if there are any questions from the chat on the API side. Mihailo, it could also be useful to, I don't know if you want to share your screen for this, but briefly speak to the data analysis agent as a whole. I know, Lucas, you have kind of presented some of the outputs of the data analysis agent before, but I'm sure people are just really curious about how this works.
There is actually one more point. What I would like to say is because we have these APIs right now, We have also enabled X402, which is basically a permissionless API access to our platform, where you can just pay and call our sub-agents. And I'll drop that link as well with the documentation here in the chat. So regarding the data analysis, we did quite a few improvements there. One of them would be we have introduced something like a reasoning steps, where you can see on the basically UI, and maybe I can share the screen as well. And let's see if I have one. I think I do. Okay.
Yeah, I have
so
one. If you don't.
no, it's good. So right now you can actually see what your data analysis is doing instead of just waiting for 22 minutes. So you can see that it is analyzing the task. It does some inventory available of the files and so on. So you can see the exact steps that the agent is taking. And then if you want to reproduce the results, what it does and how it actually interpreted all of this, you can check the notebook. And you can see all steps here with all code. So as I said, first step was to basically inventory available files, identify documentation, data inputs, and so on. So when you check this, you can see that we are basically doing inventory. So contents of user uploads. So you can see that we have some files here. And documentation files, no documentation files found. If you go back here again to the results, you can see step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on. So each step is basically defined, and you can see the way the agent thinks, kind of, and what is it trying to achieve. So I guess on step 5, when you actually want to visualize something, if I navigate to the step 5, I should probably have some visualization here, or it's saved here. So that is one of the updates, and this update is coming to the literature agent too. I heard, we saw some questions in the chat as well. And it seems that many around our users actually want more in-depth insights on how it works and the decisions our agents are making. So I think this would actually help. Another thing is basically improvements around like reading the papers, pulling out some figures from the paper, understanding, basically using paper as an input to derive the further analysis of some kind. So that is one more of the improvements here.
Yeah, one thing about these reasoning traces, which I've always found helpful, is that any like LLM-based model is just inherently a bit of a black box. And so obviously scientists, they want to sort of understand how we're getting the outputs that we're getting. So I do think that this is a good, useful step. But then again, going back, Mihailo, if you can click through to the notebook tab one more time, and then just the different steps. Yeah, you can see you can see sequentially how the agent's thought process is evolving with during the live analysis. It could maybe be interesting. Sorry to brainstorm about features right now, but Mihailo, I wonder if it would be interesting to map if there's even an easy way to map the reasoning traces to the different notebook cells so that you can kind of connect the reasoning thought with code that ends up being run.
Yeah, that is, interestingly enough, we do this internally. So we are able to do this. Basically, this notebook is dynamically generated of the reasoning steps that we do here. So it is basically a matter of showcasing it in some sense. So we can most definitely do it if there is any, if there is any like user that actually wants more in-depth explanation of how it does the things they do. So
yeah, I feel like it's just always a challenge of how to sort of penetrate the black box, but yeah, it's just kind of awesome to understand all of that. One maybe last thing on the data analysis agent, which I it doesn't come up so often, but I think it's just useful to re-emphasize on the data sets that you kind of bring into this the chat UI or like referencing database data sets. Right now on the UI, there's, I believe, a 2 GB upload limit. So if you have any custom data sets, you can upload them directly via the chat, clicking the paperclip attachment icon, and yep, exactly right there. But also, if there are any like public data sets, you can link them directly in the chat, and the data analysis agent is smart enough to ingest them within its sandbox environment. So it's actually quite a big UX improvement, I would say. So any public data sets, feel free to just add them in the chat, like shown in this prompt here.
So this is an example of what you're saying. So this is the research query. This was some time ago before we even have some questions. So this is it. Basically, you can just download this data set for the analysis. Yep. And analysis here, inside the results, you can see the goal is to download this data set. It explains what it does, and the expected output is basically do some basic QC, and let's see what this data set is about. So it does all of this. Basically, it gives you even some outputs and pre-processing manifests and so on. So later, when you actually want to do something, like here, I copied this. There was one goal, which I copied and pasted it here. So after I did that, basically, I was able to reuse the previously generated artifacts. So for example, this was, I did not upload this one. So if I go to the step, probably 2, I guess, this was the datasets provided, and datasets provided were actually generated here. So you can see, let's see, probably this sample metadata would be enough. So sample metadata, does it appear here? Yeah. So what it does, it actually reuses the previously generated artifacts to continue with the analysis. And that actually makes total sense, right? You want to download some things, you want to do some pre-processing, you want to validate some data before you actually do the real analysis and all. So one tip that I would say here is try to chunk your tasks into smaller ones. I know that we are pretty generous with the inference here. We allow users to use basically this analysis for up to 90 minutes, which is too much. But ideally, if you chunk it, you will get the results more like clearly defined, and you can then steer it in the way you want to. So you don't want to risk it to run for 90 minutes and time out just because the overall analysis or fitting some pre-processing model or whatever is taking too much time. So this is quite interesting that you can just reuse something like this and generate this.
Actually, so for those users that are going to be diving deep into the API, I think even the experimentation on how to prompt BIOS is potentially one where I could see some immense optimizations to getting like the best outputs from BIOS. So Mihailo, like you mentioned, scoping and chunking the inputs down as much as possible to be as clear as possible, giving BIOS the best chance to respond. I do think with like these OpenClaw instances, there's like a lot of opportunity to sort of dynamically generate prompts in a way that will sort of satisfy the users requirements. We're approaching a very interesting time in agentic development, and yeah, I guess while we can sort of share best practices from the UI side, definitely the sort of global global maxima will probably be found, if there is one, by these agents. Okay, so I wonder if there are any questions from the chat. Let's take a look.
I think we were answering as we were going, so not really. But maybe we can go over some maybe to explain how, what you can use the API for right now and how you can use it. So basically right now, I mean, as Lucas already said, some parts of the code are not open sourced, so there's no way actually to run everything on your own machine. Basically the data analysis and the literature sub-agents aren't open source. So even though we did open source the whole orchestration logic and stuff, you don't have anything to orchestrate, unfortunately. But after the sub-agent APIs are available, which will be soon, I guess, this week, next week, something like that. And by that, we will have full API access, even to the, also to deep research, but also to the, smaller parts of our stack. Then you will pretty much be able to run everything, well, let's say locally, but you will be, of course, not running the code on your own machine because it's not open source, right? But right now, everything you can do with the API is pretty much the deep research queries. And of course, you can use some, get routes that we made available, for example, to check the status of your research, check the conversation state and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, the deep research runs in the steering mode, I would say they last from 15 to 60 minutes. Well, 15 is mostly if you have only literature stuff, and 20 to 60 can be for analysis stuff. So if you already have some app which needs some scientific reasoning, I highly recommend using it. Also, if you want to build your own app which uses the BIOS logic under the hood, I think that's a great idea. For example, you could even use this on your OpenClaw, so you can be literally in bed laying down, and you could make your OpenClaw run. Well, if you're at the highest tier, I believe you can do 10 researches concurrently. So technically, if you give your OpenClaw API access to BIOS, you could literally be on your bed, scrolling whatever. I guess the scientific version of TikTok or something. And you could be looking at archive new papers, well, the ideas that are coming out, and you could literally run 10 independent researches from your phone if your phone OpenClaw uses the API. And yeah, I mean, that's one cool thing. And again, if you're building anything else, you can use it. You can also integrate the MCP with your with your Claude, with whatever. Though I think to think about is our API is a bit I mean, it's not slow necessarily for science, but comparing to some other APIs that you can have in MCP, it is kind of slow. So if you do use it via MCP, you might have to wait a bit for the actual answers. But yeah, I mean, tons of use cases. If anyone else wants to give some ideas, yeah, go ahead.
I would just say one small comment on that is that if you are building applications that are leveraging the BIOS API right now, consider use cases where it will take some time to get the responses, like maybe some cron jobs or something something that doesn't require real-time responses necessarily. Because yeah, depending on the complexity of the prompts, this can take several hours or it can take a few minutes. The variability there hopefully should be clear to anyone that's been using BIOS on the UI, and then thinking about what can be built today on it.
Yeah. Some questions, by the way. Oh, wait, is someone highlighting them? Okay. This is cool. I mean, it shows on my screen, but I don't know if it shows for everyone. Okay, so yeah, can it be used with proprietary data sets, for example, journals where the user has an existing subscription? So you're completely allowed to upload anything. So if you have some PDF or data set, feel free to upload it. Like we said, I mean, we have a privacy page, and you can also contact us via email. What's the email again? bios@bioxyz, I think. This is the latest one. So bios@bioxyz. And yeah, I mean, you can upload whatever, and like we said, these data sets are uploaded to buckets which only the admin has access to. also in the privacy policy, I think we guarantee that we won't like misuse this. We want to train our models using your data. And yeah, though if you're asking if our literature agent can use your subscription to pull some papers, like no, not really. You can still upload them though. And we are looking to enhance our literature agents with us using our subscriptions to get some papers and then put it there. Basically, we're working on it. Do API runs return a stable research state ID with step level events? Yeah, pretty much. So I mean, you can see it on the API and try it, but you will be returned like a whole plan. So for each iteration, you will see which tasks were planned, what were the outputs. And if you follow it real time, you will also be able to see how it evolves. Though, I mean, obviously, because if we were to keep all the like timestamps based, I mean, you cannot see, like if you're in the step 5, you cannot see what the research objective was 4 steps ago, right? But, you could build your own, let's say, pipeline or code to save these intermediary steps, and then you will be able to basically even save those like intermediary steps. But you can see the whole plan. Basically, that was your question. Yeah, Michael is showing it right now.
So this is the post where you just get the conversation ID like this, and then you can plug it in inside the get deep research, get conversation ID, and here you can see the plan, literature 0. This is the objective. This is the answer, and so on. So this is the overall objective, key insights, methodology, and so on. And these are the suggested next steps as well. And obviously, this is the messages that you see on the UI. So this is the ID of the message, some content that is actually the answer, and the question, well, what you did. Well, you asked this. So it is structured like this. So state is basically like a research state, and the messages are something similar to, well, not something similar, but exactly what you see on this side of a screen.
Yep. Another question is like, how does BIOS compare to frontier models in deep search or expert mode? So I wouldn't say there's like a full like benchmark that that judges whether like the whole expert or deep search mode is it cannot really compare that, but there's a very good benchmark regarding analysis, and we ran it, and all the results are in the paper. I'll send it again. But basically on Bixbench, which was released by Edison, is their benchmark. I think it's like ASO #1 currently, unless someone published more results, but I don't think they did. ASO #1, then it was Edison #2 by Omni, and then like some of the frontier models, like I think Opus and I don't remember which one from OpenAI we tested, but yeah. And we are preparing more benchmarks regarding like literature and the whole deep research process altogether. Yeah.
Actually, so I know it's maybe potentially in poor taste to sort of preview some scientific results, but Mihailo, do you want to share a little bit about some of the further investigations that you have been making on the capabilities side with the data analysis agent? It doesn't need to be anything like super specific, but how we're kind of thinking about this research direction.
Sorry, I think I was reading the chat, trying to actually just answer the question here. So
Yeah.
regarding the data analysis,
That's fine. I was kind of so obviously in our paper we have focused on like original Bixbench, but there have been some more developments in this space. Without being too specific, do you want to maybe share like preview what we've been working on?
Yeah, so there are many questions around this. We are basically trying to be as transparent as possible. So our goal would be to basically enable anyone to kind of verify our results by running the benchmark suite, basically, against some of the APIs, which is well now possible. So basically, there were few more new or newer benchmarks coming up. We actually ran them, and I think I cannot like guarantee T or whatever, but we are basically on par or better than most of the models. So I would not say all, with some reserve. But basically, the overall idea is that you can run the benchmark suite using your API key. You can get all the answers. You can get all the results, basically yourself. And also, we are trying to basically showcase the users on how we are doing it without just trusting us that our black box is doing that. So we will probably include some debug traces too. So
yeah, just maybe one small comment on this. So obviously we want to be as transparent as possible with these results. You know, strong claims require strong evidence. I think as a whole, like the AI scientist space is there's a lot of room for improvement on this, and we recognize that we're not like perfect at it yet either, and we are hoping that this API, being able to sort of verify it by running the API, will be at least one step in that direction. In the absence of fully open sourcing everything, there might be a point where we do open source everything, but we just want to be very intentional and very careful about that. I don't know if there's more questions about the benchmarking side, but Lucas, I'm wondering if you might be able to share some thoughts on how we think about which benchmarks are useful benchmarks to run when evaluating BIOS and sort of letting it dictate our development priorities.
Yes. So I think everyone who read into benchmarks, and it's kind of like very similar to some of the statistical analysis or what you read. I think with everything, you always need to be very cautious, because just keep in mind, why would someone create a new benchmark to not be the best on this particular benchmark? So in the end, this is always like, let's say for me as a scientist, always a gray zone between a bit of marketing and science, which is also fair, because a lot of effort, to be completely fair, huge amounts of effort, to be honest, go into the development of such new models and agents. And what we want to move towards is more that we benchmark the whole process that would mimic what a researcher actually does, right? So maybe we can also link our first paper. I think that explains it very well, that we actually think we need to benchmark and mimic what researchers do. So, for example, you spin up or go to BIOS, you explore an idea, you maybe come back a few moments later, and for everyone who is like researching at an institution, there's also a lot of like, for example, influence by MPI, or there are some, let's say, restrictions what your lab can actually execute or not. And we actually want to build that into a good benchmark, because in the end, a benchmark should actually replicate real life and not kind of fabricate and measure something that is unuseful. So this is why when we benchmark, we of course do most or try to do all of the benchmarks that are relevant. But in the end, there's always this huge question mark of, is this what we benchmark actually useful? Like, does it actually lead to any kind of improvement? And what we are actively working on and what shapes our direction is really to make a full process benchmarking and understand how can we deliver an amazing, and I think we already did, to be honest, but how can we deliver an even better co-scientist that is in real help, and not like we're good at a certain benchmark, but in, let's say, many other parts we're pretty bad. I know, and if you read the paper, there are some benchmarks, but they're still not full circle what an actual scientific day-to-day business would look like, and you would actually need to benchmark to understand that. So I think our first paper actually is amazing on lining that out. But we also, and then that's pretty much it I think on my part there. But I think what you need to keep in mind, if the more complex, like real life is always extremely complex. So if you want to rebuild and benchmark in full process of what a researcher would do, there is not one, let's say, every researcher and every institution and everyone is kind of unique, right? So you also need to account for that. So it's very hard to also just like create one benchmark that fits all processes that we have in biology or even biomedical processes. So in the end, when we want or release any kind of benchmark, you really want to make sure that it mimics reality well.
Right, there's many gaps right now. Like, for example, nobody is actually benchmarking like how the AI got to the solution, which is quite important actually, because who knows what it could, it might have done like 10 extra steps, or maybe it even just found the answer on the internet. Maybe it didn't even do what it should have done, right? Additionally, it's very hard to benchmark this whole process, because there can also be like slight human interference, because none of these all of these AI companies, us included, I guess, we're calling it AI scientists, like autonomous AI scientists, and like they're mostly autonomous, but there's a human steering it. Like the human is giving the first prompt, and it can like steer it further depending on which mode of which company you use. In our case, like autonomous mode, you're still like steering it, though the agent is trying to be as autonomous as possible, and that part is not benchmarked. Then again, like how do you how does the agent actually converge, when to stop? Maybe it does some extra research. Like it's very difficult, like you said. And I mean, I've seen like the new blog post from Biomni, and they are also mentioning some issues that we mentioned in our original paper, which is like a good sign, I guess. Like we are all on the same path. We all see the same issues. So I think these things will be will be fixed overall. But yeah, let's see when, and let's see who fixes it.
Amazing. Are there any other questions in the chat? Otherwise, we can wrap up a few minutes early. Let's see. Anything else that the three of you would like to share?
I think that's pretty much it. We did a bunch of discussing here.
Please try out BIOS and feedback.
Yeah,
we actually we need feedback. Please use it.
Amazing. Okay, well, let's then end it here. For anyone that's been watching live or later, thank you for tuning in. Go check out chat.bio.xyz to play around with BIOS. Again, if you have a .edu email address, log in with that, and then you will receive researcher tier access, which gives quite a number of free credits. And then if you have any issues there, you can submit some feedback directly on the site, and we will get to them.
Cool.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.